So, can you talk to us about the journey of finding these two animals and basically just how you guys went about finding them, essentially?
Yeah, so the journey takes us back all the way to 6 or 7 thousand years ago. It's a fun story, and that's the original record of these two species known as fossils. In the 1990s, some archaeological excavation of caves um, was undertaken by some of our colleagues, so Australian, Dutch and Indonesian colleagues, and they were studying human history as archaeologists, but they found the remains of a number of animals in these cave floors. And a very close colleague of mine named Dr. Ken Aplin, a fantastic Australian scientist, he had an eye that was refined enough to realize that there were teeth of two species of small marsupials in these fossil deposits that were not known to science. So he realized back then that these were really distinctive marsupials, but at that time it was thought that they were extinct. Now, because they're small and they live in a corner of Western New Guinea that isn't all that well known to scientists, I've always kept it in the back of my mind, could these animals still be out there? And I've been working in New Guinea for 25 years alongside with many of the colleagues like Tim Flannery at the Australian Museum who were also involved in this study. What happened is about in 2019, I got some pictures from a colleague. He texted me on my phone, and I was looking through some pictures that he had sent. And he said, "Can you tell me what some of these animals are?" I was scrolling through, and most of them were pretty common animals in New Guinea. And I got to one photo, and it stopped me in my tracks because what I saw was what we call a ring-tailed possum, a kind of marsupial that's very furry, but it had a gliding membrane. So it looked like it could be a glider, and there is no species in New Guinea that could be like that, except for one that really matched the features of the teeth of a gliding possum from that fossil deposit. So, working from that photo, we worked as detectives, sort of engaging with local communities, looking for areas where the species might still occur. And over the last few years, have been able to learn a fair bit about the animal as a living species. It's beautiful. It has these gorgeous soft fur, a very strong prehensile gripping tail, and like I say, can glide from tree to tree. There's nothing quite like it in New Guinea. The other species turned up more recently, especially on iNaturalist. And so that's one of these online platforms where citizen scientists, especially photographers, often taking pictures of birds, will snap pictures of mammals and put them up on iNaturalist. And this is where working with a colleague named Carlos Bocos, I saw some pictures he had taken, and it made me realize that is the other marsupial species. And this species is black and white striped, a bit like a skunk, and it has a really long fourth finger on its hand, which is really quite unique in animals. So we knew what it had to be when we saw it. So both of these two species thought to be extinct for 6 or 7 thousand years, we now revealed yesterday are still out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for diving into that. And is you mentioned earlier that they're in Papua New Guinea, right?
They're in Western New Guinea, which is part of Indonesia, but they're on the island of New Guinea, which is the world's largest tropical island. Papua New Guinea is on the eastern side of the island, and these species have turned up on the west.
Okay. And the reason, I guess, for it taking so long to find out that these species are still out there, is it due to it being them being in these hard to reach areas where there's no humans, or is it a very remote area?
Yeah, from a Western standpoint, it is quite a remote area. So, and these species are, found only in fairly specific pockets of the western part of New Guinea. So I think that's part of why it's taken us so long as scientists to understand that they are still there. The forests where they are found, the only places they're found today are fairly tall forests, like really big, beautiful forests, but they're those types that are most threatened by logging, deforestation. These animals being beautiful, they're very cute creatures, are also potentially affected by the wildlife trafficking trade, which is a big problem in Indonesia in particular. And so one of the things we've done is uh, not revealed the exact location where the gliding possum in particular has turned up. So demonstrating that it's still out there beyond a shadow of a doubt, but taking some precautions to keep the animals as safe as they can be.
And have you been able to estimate how sizable their populations may be?
We don't have enough information to do that yet, but because of the area where we think that they do occur, and we've found both species occur in a number of locations in Western New Guinea, there's likely to be on the order of thousands of these species, but they are, again, probably found in quite limited kind of old growth forest habitats. And so the entire survival of the species is a bit less about numbers of individuals than the fact that these last really key stands of protected and unlogged forests are looked after.
Nice. And can you talk about like why a discovery like this is so significant?
Yeah. A discovery like this is significant because, for one, I think it's an important good news story in conservation in the protection of species. It reminds us when we think something is extinct, that we've already lost the chance to protect it and keep it here on our planet. Especially species like this, where we knew that they only became extinct in fairly recent millennia. It gives us this idea of a second chance to really look after these species and protect them. We call these in biology Lazarus species, after the concept of kind of Lazarus rising from the dead. They're species we thought were gone. Now we find they're still alive. There are a number of really amazing examples of this in the history of biology, and we're really glad to add these two gorgeous marsupials to that list.
I'm glad you actually mentioned the Lazarus species because that actually leads me right to my next question, which is how frequently are these Lazarus species discovered?
I'm sorry, Lazarus species aren't discovered very often, um, and so each time that it happens, especially with mammals, is something to celebrate. Maybe the most famous example of a Lazarus species is the coelacanth, a really large species of lobe-finned fish, and it was thought to have become extinct in the time of the dinosaurs. Before, in the mid 20th century, it was found being fished as a species going into markets off the coast of Africa, and then more recently, in the last few decades, found all the way out through Indonesia. That's a striking example of, something thought to be extinct for so long. There are another of other kind of spectacular examples. There is a species of pig-like animal, a peccary, that's quite large from South America, described as an Ice Age fossil, later discovered to still be alive. These two marsupials are the best example of this for mammals in a very long time.
And is there any further research planned into these species, into these marsupial species you found?
Well, yeah, the great thing is that this announcement is sort of just kind of day one for understanding these animals. Now we've revealed to the world that they are still there, at least to, the public, the scientific world. One thing that we should emphasize is that the communities living where these species are always knew about them and have been interested in protecting them. In fact, we found through that working together, collaborating and publishing together with indigenous community, that they really are culturally significant and even in some cases of ceremonial significance. Working with these communities, working with other citizen scientists, taking pictures on feeding information in. So, professional scientists, citizen scientists, indigenous communities working together. The aim will be to learn as much as we can about these species, what they do for a living, how many there are, what exact places they're in, and try to work together to look after them in their core habitats.
All right, nice. And I got one last question for you here. Are there any other species out there that are extinct or said to be extinct and that or that you guys think could still be around and you're looking for?
Yeah, so there's a lot of animals that maybe yeah, so there's a lot of animals that are recently extinct, and I'm always on the lookout for clues that there might be other Lazarus species around. The one that gets everyone's hopes up most is the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, from the island of Tasmania in Australia. What people don't know, usually don't remember, is that it also used to live in Australia and New Guinea, just going back thousands of years ago, about to the time where these other fossil mammals were thought to have become extinct. In my mind, that would be the greatest discovery of all to find that animal still in New Guinea. Uh, we have a lot of work to do still.
Nice. And actually, I did have another question here. These marsupial species, I know they were found in New Guinea. Are there any Lazarus species, particularly here in the U.S., that you can think of that have been found recently or in recent times?
Yeah, especially examples from Hawaii where there are so many endangered species. So where we are at the Bishop Museum, our scientists have been involved in rediscovering quite a few of our beautiful small Hawaiian land snails, these species that used to be hundreds of species living across all the main Hawaiian islands, many of which thought to be extinct. And, later careful work in exploring and looking across habitats tree by tree has turned up some of these species that we thought were extinct. There's another great example. One of the most beautiful birds here in Hawaii is called the okoe and it lives on the island of Maui. It is a gorgeous honey creeper bird that we colorful, and it was thought to be extinct for some time in the 20th century before being rediscovered in the 1940s. Now there's a few thousand individuals known, and they're carefully protected. So there are these good stories, and I love the Hawaiian examples in particular.